Halloween is next week, and I think the question is I'm seeing so many people decorate and celebrate for Halloween, and yet I think we do a really poor job of celebrating the goodness that God's doing in our lives.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christi Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. Last week we were talking about the things that you can edit out of your life so that you can move forward with joy and find your lane, if you will. I think that's kind of what we were talking about. But
it's a
good synopsis. You know, the thing that we're really honing in on here in this season that we're in, what were you going to say?
Well, go ahead. You start that first. Go ahead.
I think the thing that we're really honing in on here is, and this is, if you've been listening for any length of time to our podcast, this is probably our therapeutic journey that we're inviting you in on as we figure out our own lane and our own kind of where God's leading us and what he's taking us into as a family. And then also too, the exciting things that we have coming up with Famous at Home and what does that look like with My Kids EQ, honing in to make sure that the time that we prepare and put into what it is that we're doing is well spent. Mm-hmm. And we just want to redeem our time, as the Bible describes it. Redeem your time, for the days are evil, and we want to redeem our time. And so with that said, I want to highlight a couple different things, and then I'm going to turn it to you. Hold your thought. We have group coaching, men's group coaching, and a woman's group coaching program. It's going to be emotional and spiritual growth. They're going to be really combined and interwoven. Mine will be more of a discipleship for fathers and dads. And we would love for you to fill out interest forms in the show notes. If you're interested in that, please make sure you do that. We also have a men's leader's heart that is launching February. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head, 26 to 29, I believe, 2024. Please sign up, apply. It costs nothing to apply. Just go ahead and apply. I don't think it does. Maybe it does. I think there is an application fee. Anyway, just go ahead and apply.
We're not sure.
At famousathome.com/leadersheart. And we would love to reach out to you to see you be a fit in the Leaders Heart cohort coming February. Please go ahead and check that out. Those are things that we have coming up that we're excited for. And so we're talking about exciting things today because this is one of our ways of going, okay, we're at the end of October. Halloween is next week. And I think the question is I'm seeing so many people decorate and celebrate for Halloween, and yet I think we do a really poor job of celebrating the goodness that God's doing in our lives.
That's good, Josh. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I was jumping out of my skin for. What I wanted to connect the dots with. So last week we were talking about really the things that we need to strip away, to pull back, to take out of our life. And you can't just take things out without putting things in that are good. Because just like when he talks about in the Bible, when
good word. Go ahead, go
right?
for it. I hear you. I'm
when
hearing
you strip away, or you're delivered, when they were delivered of the evil spirits, they would come back sevenfold. And the reason was because really the goodness of God or the character of God wasn't the thing that was put back in. And so whenever you do walk through deliverance, or even in your own life, when you start to strip away the things that you feel are no longer serving you, they're not putting you in the pocket or in that sweet spot in your lane, as we were talking about last week. What follows after the stripping is the refueling, the refilling, and oh my gosh, I was reading this morning. It kept talking about the fullness of God. It talked about how God filled the fullness of God. There's nothing about God that is empty. It's full. Everything is full. Everything is just bountiful, abundance. And yet we feel these areas of just like dry, arid, lifelessness in our own lives. And that's because those are the places that are not filled with the fullness of God. And the fullness of God is his goodness, because that's his character. That is what he is. He is good. He can only be good. And even when you're doing work with, trauma-informed work, when they talk about trauma, it's really what's been stolen is goodness. Even in the secular research and the secular teachings, what's stolen when we go through, in air quotes, traumas or pains in this life is goodness. The goodness of life has been stolen from us, or the goodness of a relationship, or the goodness of a moment, or who we, our childhoods. Like, goodness was taken from us, and goodness is what God comes to redeem and restore. And so that's what we want to talk about this week, is now restoring back goodness in from where it's been taken. And we do that in, lots of different ways, but one way is when we're talking about last week, talking about remember, when he says celebrate what is good and think on these things. It is what is excellent and upright and praiseworthy and lovely. And the week leading up to a very dark holiday that I'm convinced more and more every year, it's like gets darker. And like we've talked about Halloween before, we've done the trick or treat thing. We did the trunk or treat thing, when the kids were little preschools and stuff. I mean, it's just, I think I hope we're all becoming a little more aware of like how veiled this darkness,
I agree.
Is or is not anymore. It's not really veiled anymore. And so it's like, okay, sure, whatever. Candy, fun, fine. But let's choose to celebrate and fill ourselves with the fullness of God and his goodness, which is his light and his life. And so what does that look like? How do we fill our lives with that? That's what we want to talk about this week.
So good. What you were saying there reminded me of Psalm 23, where, I shall fear no evil, or I shall fear no danger, for you are with me. Even when I go into the darkest valley, right? He says, you prepare a table for me in the presence of me. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Only goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Only goodness and mercy. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live.
And it will what? It will follow me.
Follow me.
So goodness is following us. We have to like turn around and catch it.
I was doing my prayer time yesterday, and it's a Pray As You Go app. And in that time, there was the passage was being a light in the world. And, when you put a lamp under a bowl, you can't see it. But, let your light shine so that men can see your good deeds. And the direction, or the person that was doing the leading of the prayer time said, imagine yourself, and maybe you are sitting in a room right now that's pitch dark, but imagine sitting yourself in a room that is pitch dark. Now imagine lighting a candle, or go ahead and light a candle in the room. What can you see? What do you see? What has been illuminated that was not illuminated before? And I think with the celebration of evil coming up, I mean, that's what Halloween is, right? It's like Hallows Eve. It's, I think what we are doing is we are a light. And I'm not saying that we go out and we boycott and we do all this stuff. What I'm saying is that Jesus, the King, lives in you. The kingdom of God is near. If you have Jesus in your heart, the effective rule and reign of a king is where a kingdom is, and the king lives in your heart. You carry the kingdom of God with you wherever you go, which means therefore you are a light in this dark and evil world. And my whole point there is going, what can we celebrate? At the end of every single day that God created the world, he said it is good. He looked back at what he created and he said it is good. It is good. It is good. What is the goodness in your life that you can celebrate at the end of each and every day? What is the goodness you can put back into it? Because instead, I think so often what we're doing is we're getting to the end of our day, and we're guilty of this as anybody, is going, oh, we didn't have enough time for this. We didn't have enough time for that. I wish we would have gotten this done. I wish this would have been, and we effectively ignore the good. We effectively push it out. We effectively put the candle out, and we live in the darkness, not seeing the good that we are creating in the world around us, or even ignoring the good of being able to just simply sit and play a game with our kids, or the goodness of being able to sit and just talk to my wife, or the goodness that it's like, oh, well, it's like that's not good enough for us. And so therefore we ignore it. And and we're pursuing other things that are good instead, or that we think are good instead that really aren't. And so I would just, my whole point here today in this episode is to say, let's celebrate the good that we create at the end of each and every day. And let's be a light and be that light.
Yeah.
I got one other thought. Did you have something you were going to say?
I did. Well, I thought you were saying it's almost like we're waiting for goodness to come one day.
Oh, that's a good statement.
It's like it's not good enough yet, so we're waiting for it to become good one day. And I do think there's that eternal cry in our hearts searching for home, right? So we are looking for Eden. Like, we are very aware that this is not perfectly good. And so our hearts are just desiring home, heaven home, I mean. But I think that's how we miss so much. Like, we miss the goodness of these moments because it's not quite good enough, or it's not good enough yet. And if I just did this, or if we were just here, or this was just a little more, this relationship, this part of our life, my body, my eating, my whatever it is, like whatever the things are that spin in your mind, like I can celebrate, or it'll be good when. That's where I notice we lose, like it gets stolen from us. The goodness that has been given has been stolen because we fail to notice
that is this. It's all of a person's labor is for his stomach, yet the appetite is never sassified.
Yeah.
It's like the very next thing, and then the next thing, and then if
that'll
this
be
happens,
good.
and then it'll be good. And I mean, it's I think it's fascinating to me that we live this way.
But what's amazing is that that's literally how we heal. I think I've mentioned this before. It's like we heal trauma, we heal pain by restoring goodness. Isn't that profound? Like, this is what the non-believers in the trauma community and the world use these words. We have to restore goodness. And I'm like, how on earth do you think we as humans can restore goodness? Like, is that not speaking of God? Like,
the fruit of the Spirit.
It's literally
the fruit of the Spirit.
It's just, I just love it.
I
love it.
Yeah.
But so how do we do that when we are in partnership with God?
Yeah.
This is his work in us, is restoring goodness, but our part is paying attention and is perceiving what is good. Because, we were talking about last week, like just renewing our minds. If we are not continually with our minds fixed on what is good, our minds will go toward decay and darkness, partially because they're looking for something to protect us from. Like, our bodies are built that way. And we have to start to build a whole other way of noticing what is beautiful and lovely and good in our lives.
It goes back to what I was talking about last week in Ecclesiastes. Here's what I have seen to be good. It is appropriate to eat. This is Ecclesiastes 5, verse 18. It is appropriate to eat, drink, and experience good. Here's what I have seen to be good. It is appropriate to eat, drink, and experience good in all the labor one does under the sun during the few days of his life God has given him, because that is his reward.
Yeah.
Eat, drink, and be merry. This is the reason that we are given 7 Jewish festivals. The festivals, like if you study the Jewish culture, and I mean, Jesus was Jewish. You study the festivals. I mean, his life revolved around it. I mean, even the prophetic, so many of the prophetic, like his death, his resurrection falls on Jewish festivals, Passover, right? Sabbath. It's like there is, or Shabbat. There is so much happening. Pentecost. And then, what's coming yet, what's to come, you have Sukkot, the fulfillment of Jesus' second coming. I think there's something to be said for God is a God of goodness. He's a God of celebration. He's a God of joy. The whole Bible is about joy. Be joyful, even be joyful in your sufferings, because suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope, and hope that is in Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit will not disappoint us. There is so much goodness to be paying attention to, but it goes back to what we talked about last week. We have to be able to remember not forget, but remember the good. And practically speaking, what I would encourage you to do is at the dinner table each night or at bedtime each night with your kids is celebrate the good. Share what was one good thing, what was one goodness, something that was good that day in your life, or something good you accomplished, something good that you felt good about, that God showed up in your life. And then ask your kids what was one good thing in their lives that day. How can you celebrate as a family? And then at the end of the week, whether it's Shabbat dinner on Friday night, whether it's a Sunday family meeting, whatever it is you guys do in your home, go around and celebrate the goodness. And let's celebrate the goodness of God this coming week and what good he is creating in the world, in opposition of what the secular world would want us to celebrate this week. Let's celebrate the goodness of God in our families and pass that legacy on to our kids.
It makes me, I love that. I love it. It makes me also think of like the monk manual and journaling every night. And what's the one question? There's the one is when you felt most like yourself. And what was the other one?
Well, there's one where you were at your best. What are your highlights? 3 highlights. When you're at your best.
Maybe it was the highlights what I was thinking about. And maybe that's not quite the way to say it, but you realize, he's been journaling through this little monk manual he's told you about before. It's just a great tool. It really is. And I don't have one. I just like borrow with the questions because I think they're just so reflective. Like they're really helpful. And so I couldn't remember the exact words, like how they phrased it. So, but when you actually go back to write down after a day, what were your highlights? Like what stood out to you? Do that for like a week or two. You'll be, at least I was super surprised. The things that you tend to look forward to are not the same as the highlights of your day. Like the things that you think like, oh, like date night, going out with these friends, or I don't know, something like that feels big events, like this party or this going to like a massage, or like things that you would be like, oh, I'm so looking forward to that. There were so often not the things I would write down. The things that I would write down are like these small little moments, or like laying in bed with my daughter and talking about, one day, or one was like playing trains with Micah on the floor. Like it's so odd, the things that actually become the highlight, like the lightest, brightest part of your day. And is that not the goodness of God? Like, so I would encourage you, like, do that practice too, like share about it, but write down what's personal to you. Cause I think often you don't even want to say those things because they seem like you often answer to other people like, oh, I met a friend today and it was so fun, or, for coffee or something. And maybe that's your highlight. But if you journal it to yourself, just notice if the moments don't get real, like what's really true is that it was much purer. It was just a very small, what other people would see as not really significant moment of your day. And it was it really meant something to you. Like it was truly the goodest part of your day. We use that word in our family, but like, what is the goodest part of your day? Like what was, and that reflection, at least for me, it changes how you make decisions. It changes the way you structure your life. That's for sure.
No judgment if you're celebrating Halloween this week.
Eat all the Reese's peanut butter cups for me.
But here's the kicker.
That's my favorite.
Here's the kicker. Here's my encouragement, not the kicker. Here's my encouragement. Celebrate the goodness that God is doing in your life.
Yeah.
Just like he did at the end of every day.
Yeah.
You guys do the same. Eat, drink, and be merry. Look at the good of all of the labor. Look at the good of all of the things. And this might even be a great way as you start to think about how you're paring back. It might be a great way to filter through what you're paring back is where is the most goodness coming from? Yeah. And how can we therefore add more of that in our lives and less of the stuff that really isn't adding goodness and peace to our home. So until next week, actually, what we want you to do before next week is if you're interested in the group coaching for men or women, please go sign up the interest form, answer the questions that are there. That'd be super helpful to us.
If you'd like to add more goodness to your life, that would be a really great way.
That would be a great way to do it. We think so anyway.
It's
and
one of
Leader's
the
Heart
goodest things
also
I've
as well.
ever done.
We'll put that in the show notes,
Yeah.
Leader's Heart. And keep in mind until next week that the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.
Keep being famous at home. We love you.